Hello and welcome to the seventh episode of Docker series on our channel CloudSewa. So in this episode, we're going to learn about the depth of Docker Compose, and for that we will be learning about the YAML file indentation and the components and the hierarchy of the components in the YAML file, and what is the knowledge that we need to discuss about the YAML file structure. And we're also going to learn about the Docker Compose in depth, and we'll also learn how to install Docker Compose in our Linux machine. Now let's move on to viewing what a YAML file is. And YAML file is a hierarchical formatted file, and it contains the script for the container relations to communicate between multiple containers and how to host in different environments. And we should follow the indentation of line spacing to run without an error. So it has that constraint we got to follow in order to run the YAML file without any errors. And let's see about the hierarchy. So at first we specify the version of the YAML file, and then we have the services where it contains all the containers inclusive of the compose file. So we also then give the volumes, which is another component of the YAML file, which is denoted to contain all the volumes that is used up in the container process. So also there is a final component called network, which contains all the network, which also connects the different containers within the container running procedure. So now let's look at the procedure of Docker Compose. So Docker Compose, it's a tool for defining and running multi-containers which host a Docker application. So it also uses the YAML file to configure application services and helps it to run the multi-containers to host a Docker application in a single line of code. So it can start all the services with a single command, and it also easily scales up the selected services when required. So now let's discuss about what are the benefits of Docker Compose. So with the help of Docker Compose, we can run multiple containers in a single host using a single line command. That is the main benefit. And it also provides an automated testing environment before deployments, and it saves time to deploy the same combination of containers which host a Docker application in multiple hosts. So here we have the Docker Compose flow given in an illustrative flow chart. So you have that Docker Compose YAML file. While we run it, the process of Docker Compose, it breaks down into running of the Docker files if we have one designed to run, and then build multiple containers based on the Docker images. And as you can see, after finally running the containers, it can communicate with between them by use of the network component of the YAML file, which is designed and specified in the Docker Compose YAML. So now let's break the ice and get on with the installation of Docker Compose in our Linux machine. For that, we have broken down into smaller steps. So we'll be using the easiest method to install Docker Compose, which is the command sudo apt-get install Docker Compose, and then we get it the required permissions for its operations. So for that, we will be using sudo chmod +x. We'll be providing the path location of Docker Compose, and finally we can check it by using the command Docker Compose version. So now let's start with the installation of Docker Compose. At first, I'd like to check whether I have Docker Compose installed in my Linux machine already. So for that, I'll be doing Docker Compose version. So it says me I do not have that file or directory. So for that, I'll be using apt install Docker Compose. So yes, I'll be providing, and then it starts with the extraction, downloading and extraction, and installing of the Docker Compose, and then I'll be providing the permissions for the users. So yes, /x / user local binaries and Docker Compose. So I have provided the permissions. I'll be checking whether my Docker Compose has installed properly or not. So for that, I'll be using Docker Compose version. So let's check with that. I have it correctly installed. So this is the walkthrough about how to install Docker Compose in your Linux machine. Thank you for watching episode 6 of Docker series. In our next episode, stay tuned to learn about how to host a dynamic website using PHP, MySQL, and Nginx by the help of Docker Compose and YAML files.